Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Engineering Quality, the podcast where we get real about testing, leadership, careers, and what it actually takes to build sustainable teams in tech. I'm Roya Lee.
Hi everyone, I'm Ellie.
Hi, all, and I'm Veronica. And today's episode is especially close to home because we are talking about the tech job market, recruiting realities, and how candidates can stand out in a very competitive landscape. Our guest today is someone I personally trust a lot when it comes to career in tech. We are thrilled to welcome Ali Feldman, an experienced tech recruiter who has worked hands-on as an individual contributor and led recruiting teams across multiple companies. Ali has a broad background recruiting across engineering, product, and technical leadership roles. And fun fact, she found my last 3 jobs. So, yes, you could say Ellie has been my personal recruiter for years. We invited Ellie today to dig into what the tech job market looks like right now, what has changed, and what candidates should really be focused on. Ellie, welcome. We are so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, Ali. So, before we get into the meat of the matter, we like to start with something light by asking our guests this question. So, if you weren't in tech, what do you think you'd be doing right now?
So, I think I'd probably try to be a painter, which is very
Oh.
different. So, the painting that's actually behind me right over here, I painted.
Oh,
It's hanging up in our
wow.
living
Awesome.
room. Yeah, there's a couple around our apartment that I've painted. So, I think that would be really fun. It could end up being a little tough because, when something goes from being a passion to a job, you sometimes lose a little bit of the excitement around doing that thing.
Yeah,
But I would want to give it a shot.
that's
Yeah,
incredible.
that's
Wow.
awesome.
And it looks pretty impressive that
It
that
does.
painting there.
Thank
So
you.
cool. So good to hear like how people, we always talk about tech here. So hearing the different choices people would make or will make maybe when they retire or whatever. But it's really nice to hear. All right, so let's jump right in. You've been deep in tech recruiting for a while now.
Yeah.
So, from your perspective, are you seeing anything different in the current job market? And are there any trends or shifts that candidates should be especially aware of right now?
Yeah. So I think something that is top of mind and is probably pretty obvious. There's a lot of shifts around AI. And I think that's showing up in two forms. So that's showing up both in the application process and in the interview process. So,
Mm.
what that looks like on the application front is we're seeing a lot of AI generated resumes that are both like real and legitimate and fake. So, resumes that are coming in from fake candidates.
Wow.
Um, it's increased the inflow of resumes significantly. And there are tools that exist that are starting to be able to kind of recognize when a resume is generated through AI, but they're a little wonky. Not a lot of companies have adopted them yet. So, from the application side of things, the results of that is, it's leading to a lot longer kind of review times of applications because we're just getting so many more inbound. Um, and quite frankly, it does sometimes lead to more perceived ghosting of applications if recruiters are unable to get through that volume.
Mm.
On the interview front, we're seeing, you know, AI coding tools kind of coming into play a little bit more. A lot of candidates will either intentionally or unintentionally try to use them during the interview process if they have a coding round, say that they have to accomplish. My advice for that, FYI, is don't do that unless it's explicitly stated by the company, by the interviewer or recruiter that you can use a coding tool. Don't use one because most of the time companies are still really like skewing towards not using those during the interview process. There are some companies that are trying to create rounds where, you know, they do allow for that, but that is a distinct round separate from, a more traditional coding interview. And, when in doubt, if you don't know if you're allowed to use it, ask. Just ask
Yeah.
the recruiter and be like, is this something that the company allows for? And be okay with whatever the result and answer to that question is. So those I would say are probably the two biggest trends. It's like AI is really shifting the landscape when it comes to inbound applications as well as kind of testing um, interview flexibility when it comes to the actual interview process itself.
Wow, that's actually, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's sad. That's honestly sad that like real candidate being stood out by AI generated fake candidates.
Yep.
And yeah, I can see how hard it might be to identify which one is fake, which one is real. And
Yep.
my understanding is because of that, valuable candidates can be missed in the process, in
Yeah.
the pipeline. Wow.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
and there are times where candidates' resumes just look almost too perfect, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
And we won't catch it. And so we'll get on a call. And um, some of the, when we're doing video, like there are like things that can be done to see if it's a real person on the other end of the
Okay.
video. So it's like, you know, talking like this for a little bit, having your hand, doing some gestures. As AI gets better, that's not really going to be as helpful. Um,
Oh.
but in the interim, it's it's a bit of a workaround. Also, just doing more video calls versus phone calls, I think it's pretty helpful. But yeah, once a candidate gets verbally speaking about the work, if they can't actually speak to the work that's on the resume, you
Mhm.
know, a good recruiter is going to get that and notice that, and it ends up just like being a waste of everyone's time, which is
I
quite
see.
frustrating.
So does it mean that right now the like even recruiter screens are coming towards like video screening, like because before it was only phone screens?
Yeah, so it's still very much company dependent.
Okay.
A lot of companies are very flexible in how recruiters take their recruiter screen, but some companies are less flexible. Some companies will now mandate recruiters do it
Hmm.
over video so that there is that additional layer of identification. I think that it was not part of my process initially. I always preferred a phone call.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think that stemmed more from just being like a woman in a male dominated industry where I didn't love the idea of people seeing how I looked and, jumping to conclusions based off of that. But eventually the value add of actually getting to have a conversation, quote unquote face to face outweighed any sort of uh insecurities that I had the personal side of things. So I did actually make the shift to doing all recruiter screens over BC eventually because it is pretty helpful.
Yeah, I can see how it might be helpful. That's great that this is where we're going. Also, considering that right now, almost all interview, uh, almost all interviews are just like remote, regardless if you do on-site position or not. Like it's additional kind of like a channel to make a decision, like see the
Yeah.
video on top of the audio.
Yeah. And believe it or not, this is not as common, I would say, in all tech companies, but some of like startups, some of the smaller companies, and then, you know, some like the electronic trading companies that hire engineers, they actually are starting to move back towards in-person interviews.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not
interesting.
like you won't see that at the Googles or the Netflixes necessarily, but there's a lot of startups that are interested in person work. So more and more, I'm seeing startups require people being in the office. There is flexibility around working from home, so it might not necessarily be 5 days in the office. Though I am seeing that as well. Um, so when a company is saying like, hey, yeah, we want you to come into the office for work, they're also saying we want you to come into the office to interview. So it's actually becoming more common again to see that on-site interview happen in person versus remotely.
So you mean the whole interview round, like every round for the interview, or like just the final round
Just
or
the
one
final.
round?
Just the
Right.
final.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I find that as a candidate, like after the pandemic, even before, like I also prefer having at least one if they're going to ask me to be in an office, I want to see where
Yeah.
it is, how it looks, how the people
Absolutely.
are. So
Absolutely.
I find that from my side as a candidate, I don't mind if the job is not fully remote, because if it's fully remote, then it makes no difference. But if they are mandating that I need to be in a office, I want to see what it looks like before I
Yep.
go and decide to
Sure.
work there. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I agree with you too. If I'm going to have to be there every day, I kind of want to see the vibe, the aesthetic, how people are working together.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes. So, Ellie, you did touch a little bit on the resume. So, can you please tell us a little bit more into like when you scan in resumes or LinkedIn profiles, like
Mhm.
briefly, quickly as you need to because of the amount of volumes that you have, what elements immediately signal that someone might be a strong fit for the position? And on the flip side, what actually makes someone to like cause the red flags on the same like resume or LinkedIn profile?
Yeah. So, on the strong fit side of things, these are things that you can't really fake. They're things that either you have or you don't. So if you have extremely relevant work, so let's say you were on a team that was doing similar or the same work at a different company, that's going to be one of the highest predictors of interest and fit from a recruiter. So an example of this is, I was hiring for the commerce team for Cash App back in the day. And so we would look at candidates from Shopify, obviously, because the relative experience is extremely related to the work that we were doing. When we were hiring for ML engineers for our recommendation systems, we were looking at companies that do a very good job of that. So Spotify, Instagram, and looking at the recommendations teams at those companies because they do an incredible job of recommending, songs or reels or what have you. So those are things that automatically are green light. We love to see it. We're going to be super stoked when we see something like that. Another thing that stands out as really positive, and this one, there is gray area, I will acknowledge that, healthy tenures at companies. So
Oh.
the gray area there is that with layoffs,
Mm-hmm.
we recognize that happens, and that is not necessarily indicative of someone's ability to be a strong contributor on a team. That said, if someone is, showing pretty consistently in a pattern that they are staying at companies for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 6 years, that's a green flag no matter what. It does look good. It means that you know, are dedicated to the company. You are able to stay in a role and like kind of grow within a company as well. So on the flip side of that, if you're at a company for 6 years and you've shown no growth, that's a red flag. So we do want to see a trajectory of growth if you've been somewhere for an extended period of time.
So
And
what
then
qualifies as an extended period of time? So is it a matter of time that's too much?
that's a very great question, and it is nuanced. I would say in this day and age, a healthy period of time is probably like 3+ years. That's like long enough for you to really make a significant impact at a company. Um, the expectation is not that every single role you've ever been at is 3+ years, but we want to see at least one
Right.
that's on there that's like that. Um, if you've only been at one, maybe two places in your entire career and you have a 25-year-long career, yes, that can dissuade hiring managers from moving forward. It won't be a non-starter. The initial conversation will likely still happen. But what we do tend to see in those situations is candidates that might be less flexible in adapting to new systems. They might have it in their mind that, this is a way that works and this is the only way I've ever done something. And
Yeah.
so the rigidity of that mindset can sometimes impact them as they go to a new role, especially, if they're leaving a company they've been at for a very long time. They're probably, very, very well trusted. They have a lot of cachet. People, if they speak, people will listen. And you have to really build that up again at a new company. And that can be very challenging for some people. So it works on both sides where, they might not like, I guess, the new way of doing things. They might be resistant to that. And they might not enjoy having to, I guess, rebuild that level of credibility that they had already
Yeah.
previously established.
I can see how it might be a problem if, like, for example, you have been in the company for 10 years, everyone
Yeah.
knows you, everyone's just like kind of listen to you because of the brands that you build, right? And then you join the new one, and it's like, oh, I know nothing, no one listens to me. Like, what do I do now? I forgot how to build those credibility at this point. Yes,
It's
I can
tough.
see how it might be. Yes, it's hard.
It is hard. And then on the red flag, like the very obvious red flag side of things, these are, I would say, the things that I'm about to list are not immediate rejection worthy um, things, but I would say they are more likely to make us reject you because they generally kind of show thoughtlessness. So something that is, I think some of you will be shocked when you hear this list, but it is common. These are things that we see all the time. So formatting. If you
Hmm.
submit your resume with sloppy formatting, meaning one bullet point is a different font and a totally different size. One bullet point is maybe bolded and italicized. It looks like you've copied your bullet points from, a group of different resumes and just sort of taped it all together to make your own. And it's like, it just seems very careless and inauthentic. Um, Spelling errors, I hate to say that, but it's something that hiring managers, especially, like, I think recruiters will be a little bit more forgiving of that,
Right.
um, especially because English is not everyone's first language that is interviewing. And so the empathy lens from a recruiter tends to be a little bit, greater than with hiring managers. But I have seen hiring managers harp on that. So just do the extra work there, spend a little extra time, check for spelling errors. Resume
Wow.
titles. This one is very interesting. So people will submit resume titles with the wrong company name, with a different candidate's name, even though at the top
Really?
of, oh yes, oh yes,
What?
yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So the resume itself, in the body of the resume, it will say the correct name, but when they save the file, it's, it'll be
Uh-oh.
Christina or somebody for Google instead of Joe for Block or, what have you. And so that's another one where it's like, okay, how much time did you really spend on this, and how much of this is yours? Um, and then saving the resume as a PDF. This one, I think a lot less people know to do this than I don't know, than at least I expected. The reason why it is beneficial to upload your resume as a PDF and not as a docs or, whatever other Word doc formatting you use is because not every company uses Microsoft Office. Not every company uses the tools that maybe you're used to using at home. And so when we do download the resume and then have to open it in the tools that we're using, the formatting
Changes the
does get
formatting.
messed up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, of course.
Also, you don't want your resume to ever be editable by anyone other than yourself. So always save it as a PDF and upload it as a PDF. Again, like, that's not something that I would ever reject a candidate for, but it is something where it's like a level of awareness that will stick in as just a data point in the back of our minds. I think that, a lot of job hopping does stand out again. Gray area. So layoffs really started to pick up steam right after the pandemic. Prior to
Mm-hmm.
that, we weren't seeing these mass layoffs. They would happen, but it wasn't as extreme as the current environment. And so, if you're looking back at someone who has a long career, but they've only stayed 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, a year, less than 2 years anywhere, and that's going back to beyond these layoff days, that is typically indicative of someone that either has issues working in a team environment, is just trying to get a better offer somewhere else and doesn't really have loyalty. Maybe they can't advocate for themselves. There's a lot of different reasons why that might happen. But most of the time, it is something that is flag worthy. And again, it's not something that you'll immediately be rejected for. We'll want to know that story, but it is a flag that absolutely stands out and is called out by everyone who looks at the resume. Um, a very weird one. I don't think anyone here would do this, but it happens so often. Applying for jobs you have no relevant experience for. Without fail, every single job that is posted gets people that have no technical engineering experience whatsoever. I'm talking like I've had line cooks apply for engineering leadership roles. I posted a crypto role once. It was like a blockchain crypto engineering role. I had crypto traders applying that have never written a line of code, and they just saw the word crypto and they were like, "Yep, I'm going to apply. I'm interested." It's like, no, read the actual job. If you don't have the most basic level of relevant experience, please do not submit your application.
Well, do you need to go through those manually, or is something that AI can help with potentially?
There really isn't anything that will filter that out and reject it automatically. A lot of companies
Okay.
steer away from that because tools are just not foolproof enough yet. And you don't know if that person maybe has done a boot camp on the side and it's not what's listed in their actual, most recent experience. They're
Okay.
just doing that and it's listed under education or it's listed under side projects or something. Uh, and, transparently for a senior role or a leadership role, they would still be rejected, but we just can't rely on tools solely for that. The filtering process just needs to be double checked sometimes.
Is there a layer of, let's say you get like overwhelmed with applications, right? Like, and like I said, maybe 10-20% of them are completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Is there a layer of AI that you can use or that you actually use to say, I don't know, if it doesn't pick up these words, or is there anything that you do when you have like those massive amounts of resume that you don't want to miss the ones, the pearls in the middle there,
Yeah.
because you have so much stuff? Is there any techniques or tools that you use for that, or you have to go through one by one to figure
There
it
are
out?
tools. There are absolutely tools where I think what we do is kind of the reverse in a way. So it's like we'll use the tool and we'll look for resumes that have these keywords of, you know, uh, let's say it's a specific language or a specific framework that we definitely want. And so it'll make sure to pull those resumes up top, front, and center. And so we can go through those and spend time on those. And then the assumption thereafter, yes, we could probably put in words like chef or sales, but the amount of extraneous jobs that are unrelated, it's not feasible to actually do it that way. The only way to do it is to surface resumes that have the words we want. And then
Right.
we can make the assumption that if these resumes don't have those words, they're probably not a fit, but you still have to check them. You can't,
Mhm.
you can't just rely on the tool. And I'm not going to say that every recruiter does this. There are recruiters out there that will take, the easier time-saving approach and will say, all right, well, I exhausted all the words I can think of, and these resumes still exist on here. I'm just going to bulk reject. A really good recruiter, a talented recruiter is not going to do that. They're still going to spot check it. And, even it takes 3 seconds, 5 seconds
Yeah.
maybe. If the resume like really isn't a match, you'll see that pretty quickly. And at least you did your due diligence. It's always just worth it to double check that.
So on the topic of resumes, right? There's so many talks on what should a good resume include. So some people will say don't keep it too detailed. You don't need to include all your experience, just maybe the last. Others will say just keep it 2 pages minimum. Others will
Yep.
say include everything, make it as detailed as possible. From your perspective, what do you think a good approach would be for someone to have a good solid resume?
So I think generically speaking, you definitely don't want it to be too long, but you can fall into the pendulum can swing too far the other way as well. So you can't just write, you know, built a back end system for a marketplace, for a seller marketplace. That doesn't tell me what you personally, it tells me what your team did, maybe. It doesn't tell me what you actually accomplished. So it can't be so generalized and broad that it's not highlighting your actual contributions. But we don't want like a 3-page resume. I will say, and I think this is divisive, and not every recruiter will agree with me, but it is perfectly fine to have a 2-page resume if you have many, many years. If if you've led large teams, if you've been in the industry for 15, 20 years, there's no way you are going to do yourself justice by trying to fit all of that onto one page. There really isn't. Having a 2-page resume is perfectly fine. We will not reject you for that. And if a recruiter does reject you for that, you don't want to be at that company. So just, I would say be logical there. Um, on the flip side of that, if you only have 5 years of experience, you don't need a 2-page resume. You can probably keep things onto one page. I have 10 years of experience. My resume is on one page. So you can
Really?
get it done. Yeah. Yeah. I, it's because I could have honestly done a page and a half, but that felt a little funny. So I was like,
So then how do you really highlight? Because you're saying, okay, you want to see some details, right? So
yeah.
do you just highlight your most recent and have everything else? If you want more information, the recruiter or the hiring manager will ask, or how do you not get rejected because you don't have the keywords because you're trying to keep it compact?
Sure. So this actually does lend itself to the second point of non-generalization tips that I would recommend. Don't just have one resume. Look
Yeah.
at the job description. What does it say? What are the job requirements? Look at the company. What is the company doing? And tweak your resume to highlight the things that you've legitimately done that match those. Do not say that you have experience that you do not have. That is not to say, tweak your resume to the JD and add things that are relevant if you have not done them. But there are always ways to like look at that JD and say, hey, it's calling out, it wants X, Y, and Z. I've done that. So I'm going to focus this resume on highlighting those specific things. And maybe I'll omit the things that are not being called out, that are maybe less relevant. And you're actually tweaking your resume to the role, to the company. And I think that does stand out a little bit more than keeping it so generic and using that same resume to every
That's a
company.
good point.
Yeah.
So I've heard a recruiter before saying it's a red flag, like the opposite of what you're saying, right? Saying it's a red flag if you have a resume for different companies, different roles, and especially the way that you name your resume. So for example, like Royally Martin and whatever the company is. Do, are those things red flags, or you think that's totally fine?
I think that's totally fine. I think that it doesn't come off as misleading if this information on the resume is accurate. It's misleading if, again, like if you're elaborating or aggrandizing your work or saying things that aren't accurate, aren't legitimate. But just because someone has a resume where they're highlighting the specific things that make sense for this company, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a very thoughtful thing and helps us, whittle down and distill down what actually matters in the work that they've done versus, having to try to read through all this fluff that maybe is unrelated. Maybe it's nice to have, but like, I'd rather see, oh, we want this thing. Let's pattern match. You've done this exact thing. Show me that. So,
So let me ask you this, like with regards to red flags. Because I've seen places where a job posting, like the ones that say how long ago it was posted. So
yeah.
like I'll see posted within the past 20 minutes or posted an hour ago. And then you'll see 500 applicants applied. Is that a red flag? The speed at which people apply to roles, because that tells that they haven't taken the time to really. So are those things red flags as well, or no?
No, honestly, no. It's, yeah, at least that's never crossed my mind or anyone on my team's minds because people can just get lucky and it's like, oh, like I'm on LinkedIn. Someone just shared this job. I'm just going to apply, like not thinking twice about, oh, maybe I should wait. It's not, it's like dating in a way. It's like the 3-day rule. Do you wait 3 days to text back? Like, no, you don't have to do that. It truly does not cross my mind when someone's applied. That's got nothing to do with it. No.
But if like from the candidate's perspective, so let's say there's like 500 people already applied. So, well, me as a candidate, how I look at this is like, oh, there is already a high volume of resumes in there. Would I even be considered?
Still
This
apply. Still
still
apply. Yeah. I hate to, use a very overused quote, but you miss all the shots you don't take. If you don't apply, you're definitely not going to get viewed. So if you submit the application, at least you have a chance of being viewed. And, to play devil's advocate here, you might be sourced. Recruiters still go on LinkedIn. They still proactively reach out to candidates. And so if you are a good fit, you absolutely might still be sourced, but you're limiting your visibility significantly by not submitting the application. So don't let the number dissuade you. If anything, let it give you context that it might take longer than you expect to hear back. But it shouldn't be a blocker for you to submit an application if the role is something that you're actually quite excited about.
Yeah, I have like kind of questions that comes after that. For example,
Sure.
let's say I applied to the position that was like many candidates. Does it worth for me, let's say, reach out to this recruiter on the LinkedIn and say, hi, I'm applied? Just like, oh, is it like annoying? Like, because I'm not sure what is the volume right now of like those messages that recruiters get.
So I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something that recruiters are gonna hate me for. They're gonna hate me. So it does help, but in this current state, because not everyone takes the time to do that. If everyone started to take the time to do that, then no, it becomes less helpful.
Okay.
And it's not great if you reach out to a million people. So we've seen candidates reach out, they don't know who the actual recruiter is for the role necessarily, unless they're doing some really deep due diligence and looking at the team a recruiter works for. And if that recruiter has really specific information, usually they're not going that deep. So they'll just look for someone that's a recruiter and message anyone that says recruiter. But we also see them messaging engineers and you're like sending out 20 plus messages being like, hey, I just submitted my application. We're less excited about that.
Okay.
But if you just send it to pick 3 recruiters, 4 recruiters, send a message to them on LinkedIn like, hey, FYI, I submitted my application 2 weeks ago. wait a period of time. Don't do it when you submit your application.
Okay.
Give recruiters a chance to actually get to it. Wait like 2 weeks or so, or a week, whatever. Send a follow-up, and it is more likely to get some recruiter on the team's attention. They will then follow up with the appropriate recruiter. It's not foolproof. It won't work every time, but it does work sometimes at this current state.
Yeah, I will say that has worked for me before too. Like I reached out to a recruiter a while after applying on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and I told them that, hey, I applied for this role. I'm not sure if they're the correct recruiter, but I did want to, make them aware
Yeah.
that I applied. And they were nice enough to put me in touch with the correct recruiter. So,
Exactly.
and get things going from there. So
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
work.
It does. It does. And like I said, recruiters might hate me because they're about to get a whole bunch of candidates sending them messages now. But don't abuse it. Just, do it when it's something that you
That
really want.
yeah, you're good
Yeah.
at. On the flip side of that, do you still do you as a recruiting industry, do you still go into LinkedIn actively searching for people for applications, or are you getting so overwhelmed now with applicants that you're like, I have so much here, I'll find someone in this pool, or because I've known that in the past, like I used to get, lot, it feels like a lot more real contacts from recruiters. I still get lots, but again, I
Yeah.
think on the flip side of the applicant too, there is a lot of
AI,
fake
a lot of
recruiters for
scams.
fake
Yeah.
jobs or whatever. But do you still have time for that? Because with all this influx of AI, just a curiosity.
So it's not a black and white answer. There are a ton of companies that do have dedicated sourcing teams, and that's their sole job is to be finding candidates on LinkedIn and reaching out to them.
Yeah.
There are companies that don't have the capital, don't have the ability to have dedicated sourcers. So it does fall onto the recruiter to be doing that. Sometimes they don't have the time.
Right.
It is best practice to be able to do that. You will find probably the best candidates that way because you can do incredibly targeted searches. So, the candidates that are being surfaced by these searches are the ones that are hitting every single piece of criteria that you are looking for. So, it is beneficial to carve out time to dedicate to that. But in my career, there absolutely have been times where the inbound was incredibly healthy. The referrals were incredibly healthy. We were seeing high quality candidates that way, that we were just a little bit less effective on the sourcing front. Um, but it is something that, as managers, we do want our team to be doing, and we will push for it and we will remind them about it. Even if it's just an hour, 2 hours a week, just getting some sourced candidates in there is always a really good idea.
Nice.
Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit, we did talk somewhat about the layoffs, and we know that a lot of our listeners have gone through layoffs over the past
Yeah.
couple of years. So, what advice do you have for people navigating a competitive job search after a layoff?
Yeah. So the good thing is layoffs are significantly less stigmatized these days because almost every candidate has been through one. Um, I think, you know, being clear, if you know the reason, sometimes you don't, and that's perfectly fine too. But if you do know about the reason, then be clear about it. So maybe the team or the project was made redundant, or, the company's shifting focus away from that. Or maybe they're overcorrecting on headcount and the company indexed on retaining longer tenured employees, and you hadn't really had the time to establish yourself, or maybe the org was being flattened and they didn't need senior managers or senior ICs and they wanted to have something a little bit, more level. If you know the reason, feel free to explain that. If you don't, that is perfectly fine. Don't make something up. Don't guess. But it's not being laid off, even if it's multiple times. Being laid off is not something that will get you automatically rejected. I think I'm trying to think back in the last couple of years. I truly think almost every single candidate that I've spoken to has been through layoffs at one point or another. So don't let that get too much into your head, because I can tell you that it's not going to be a significant feature that's playing in the interviewers' minds. I think a good way to stand out is talking about what you've done since the layoff. So if you didn't get a job right away, let's say, how have you been keeping your skills sharp? Maybe that is just doing some side projects with friends. Maybe that is learning something new within the world. Maybe that's creating a podcast. Maybe there are different things that you can do to sort of stay on top of your skills and just building out those skills. Any reflection that you've done. So, I think that when someone's really able to think about the layoffs that they've been through and say, I really learned a lot about X, Y, and Z, and what I don't want in a future job and what I do want in a future job. That level of thoughtfulness also does come across really well. So I would encourage people to think about that. Maybe unfortunately your last role was your favorite thing and you walked away being like, oh my God, my heart is broken. There is still a way to flip that into thoughtfulness. Here's what I loved about that role. Here's what I would want to see in my next company. And I do think that shows, an ability to remove yourself from the situation and take away things that will go with you to your next role.
That's a great way to put it. Thank you very much, Ellie, for sharing this. This is yeah. Also, I have to say, from my personal experience, I have been through layoffs twice. And I remember the first time, it was before COVID, before all of that. I was so ashamed. Just come on, I have been laid off. And it was also my first time.
Yeah.
We did have an episode on layoffs. We were talking about all those nitty-gritty things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard. It's hard emotionally, and it's very hard to detach yourself from what's happening and do not take it personally.
Yep.
But at the current market, you just cannot take it personally anymore.
No.
Yeah. You really can't. And honestly, even if you've been let go, not because of a layoff, I think that it is still something that you can really speak to in a way that shows growth and development. And here's what didn't work. Here's where the discrepancies were and the misalignment was. And, this is what I've done and this is what I realized. And this is a mistake that I'm not going to make again, sort of mentality. It's everyone at one point or another, almost everyone will get laid off, will be fired, will have a mismatch at some point in their career. It's just how you're able to sort of speak to that and move on from that will kind of set you apart from everyone else.
Yeah. So true. Well, Ali, this has been incredibly, incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for sharing with us, real grounded perspective. We really appreciate it. But before we wrap up, we've got a quick, fun, rapid fire round that we want to do with you just to get to know you a little better. Are you
Sure.
up for it?
Yeah.
All right. So the first question, real fun, real simple. Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi.
Oh, me too.
Coke all the way, please.
All right. So the next one, sushi or tacos?
Sushi.
Yes.
Not right now,
Okay.
obviously.
Yes.
No, of course.
All right. Hotels or Airbnb?
Hotels. I
We're
like
a lot
when people.
alike, Ellie.
I don't want to have to clean up after myself. I do that all the time at home.
That's what I said. We were playing this earlier among the three of us, and I had the same answers as you. And my answer for a hotel was the same thing. I'm like, I do not want to do any of the work. I want
Yeah.
somebody else to do it for me.
Yeah.
Isn't this why you pay for cleaning fee like in Airbnb? You don't need to
Right,
clean
but
up.
it's just at the end, right? Like after you
Okay.
leave. But while you
Okay.
are
Yeah.
there, you don't have to cook. You don't have to
Yeah.
clean when you're at a hotel, you
Yeah.
know?
That's
Yeah.
true. Mm. Okay.
And then theme park or spa day?
Ooh. I really like both. But just going with my current mental state, I'm gonna go with spa day.
Uh-uh. All right. And then the last one, do you prefer the big picture or the details?
I think I'm a big picture person. I'm pretty sure. I
Nice.
when it's my own work, I am all about the details and I focus a lot on that. But I do when I'm looking at like when I'm trying to feel inspired, it's the big picture that will inspire me, not the details.
That's awesome. So nice to learn a little bit more about you. Thank you for sharing, Ali.
Of
So before
course.
we let you go, where can our listeners connect with you or follow your work?
So they can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Ali Feldman. If I don't respond, feel free to send a message. But no, I should be able to connect with anyone that sends me a connection request. Um, yeah, I don't really post a ton on LinkedIn, but I'm on. I'm on there almost every day. So I will see anything that comes through.
Does it mean that like every single recruiter is on LinkedIn almost every single day, or
Oh
is
yeah.
this like is it like a regular thing?
It's a tab that stays open on
Oh,
the
okay.
window. Yeah. Along with any profile that we like. Usually that's
Oh.
yeah. It'll be like an entire window dedicated to LinkedIn and it might have like 30 tabs open. So
Wow.
yeah.
Cool. We are getting some insights now.
Yeah.
That's how recruiters work.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much for sharing, Ellie. And we will link your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
Awesome. Yeah, that works.
So folks can connect with you. And Ellie, thank you again for joining us. It was such a valuable conversation. And we are so grateful that you found the time to join us at Engineering Quality.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again, Ellie.
Bye,
Bye for
everyone.
now.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. Ali gave us a much needed reality check on the tech job market and some very practical advice on how candidates can stand out.
Yes, it was so refreshing to hear directly from someone, who sees the full recruiting process. And it was so refreshing to see someone being so transparent about the whole process as well, which is a part of the process that most of us candidates don't get to really see. So I loved
Yeah.
to hear from her on all those tips as well.
Yeah, it was great to get some behind the scene tips on like how recruiters work and this area where candidates usually do not have a path to go to. Just like to see this all, just like how it's happening, the magic that's happening behind. Just like I submitted the application and now those are things that are happening. I honestly, some of them I didn't even know that's happening.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was very enlightening conversation.
Absolutely, and then to see behind the scenes these days as well, like with AI, because we knew the AI conversation was going to pop up for sure, and just
Uh-huh.
understanding, how recruiters are using it, because we make our, we kind of make some assumptions there, but it was really nice to hear from her. How they're actually using it to see that, like she mentioned in the beginning, if a recruiter doesn't get back to you, it sounds like they're ghosting you. Don't take that personally. It's not because they are ghosting you. Most likely they are overwhelmed with the number of applications that they got. So I love that to hear that part.
Yeah, I love that too. And to your point with AI, like my assumptions on the way that they were most likely using AI was completely off.
Same.
So it was really good to hear, the real perspective on what it
Totally.
is in the real world.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
was also happy to hear that they do not just reject you based on the keywords or any other techniques that they use with AI. I'm really glad that experienced recruiters know
Yeah.
how to find those gems, how to find those uh, one of the kind in the pile of this thousands of resumes
Yeah, and I
right
got a
now.
whole new appreciation as well, for what they do. It's
Yes.
hard work, the ones that are professional, that are really trying to find the best match between company and candidate. They are doing a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So I loved to hear directly from her.
Yes, it is. It's a lot of hard
Yeah, it
work.
was awesome. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who is navigating a job search right now. Follow Engineering Quality where you get your podcasts. Visit us at engineeringqualitypodcast.com website and check our new YouTube channel at Engineering Qualities for full video episodes. Until next time, bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.